Hey, good evening and happy Good Friday. We are so happy you are here. Welcome to Apex News Above the Noise. I am Kyle Thompson.
And I'm Craig Blanton.
And tonight we have got a packed show for you from a major local development that could reshape recreation here in Frankfort to sweeping changes out of the Kentucky General Assembly to a strong but complicated national jobs report. And in sports, Kentucky may have just changed the future of NIL. So we're going to start off locally tonight. Craig, before we do, how we doing tonight, Craig?
Doing good. Went out and flew the drone over top of the quarry, and I'm going to look at that video later tonight.
Great, great. Well, we are going to start off tonight. Frankfort Natatorium and Recreation Project. It's not just talk anymore. Plans for a new indoor aquatic and wellness facility in Frankfort are officially moving forward. Frankfort City Government, Franklin County Fiscal Court, and the Franklin County Public Schools have entered into a joint agreement to begin designing what could become a state-of-the-art natatorium and recreation center. What is being planned, according to a report from the State Journal, the proposed facility includes a 10-lane 25-meter competition pool, seating for approximately 700 to 800 spectators, spaces for high school competitions and community recreation, ADA accessible and multi-use design features. This is not just a local pool. This is being designed as a regional level facility capable of hosting major events. The proposed site is near Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Cold Harbor Drive on approximately 3.75 acres of land being acquired from the state. Why now, you may ask? The project is being driven by a major gap in the community that we all know and have felt over the years. Frankfort has been without a reliable indoor public facility for years. The Kentucky State University Exum Center pool closed in 2021 due to mechanical issues. That closure left residents, students, and local teams without a consistent indoor option. Obviously, Craig, the loss of the YMCA as well. And here's where things are as it stands tonight. The project is currently in design and RFP phase. Firms are submitting concept plans and cost estimates. A joint committee is reviewing proposals for any final construction decision. And this is critical. Construction has not been approved yet. The project will depend on final cost and funding decisions. And the bigger vision, local leaders say this project could host regional swim meets and tournaments, drive sports tourism and local economic activity, and provide year-round health and wellness for the citizens of Frankfort and Franklin County. Craig, this is this is big news. We got news late yesterday that there was a quick meeting that was being put together, a short 15-minute meeting. Didn't really know what it was about, but this is what it was. Your thoughts on finally moving forward on a local pool and sports facility?
Yeah, we made a guess on this is what it was, but didn't have the facts, so we didn't go public. But this will join in with what's going on at Lakeview Park with the new 7 ball fields. This will drive economic tourism. It'll drive sports tourism. Plus, it'll give everybody something that we've wanted since the Y on Broadway has been torn down. You'll have an indoor and an outdoor pool. It looks like on those pictures, the smaller pools will be either lap pools, probably. We don't know the specs yet. 2 indoor basketball courts, which will have volleyball too. 2 outdoor basketball courts. Looks like nice greenery and all that stuff. This thing will be spectacular if it comes through.
It will. I will say that all of this is just in proposed phases.
Right.
It looks like this is what they have proposed here is just something of wishful thinking. I will say, Craig, that while nothing is permanent, it is a little frustrating. And not to continue to harp on things in the past, but Swim Play Frankfort came to the city and to local officials about 15 years ago with this plan. My daughters were young swimming. They're now in college, and they were swimming at the time. They were probably 4, 6 years old, and they Swim Play Frankfort under the leadership of Brad Thomas and others came to the city, and they decided not to do that. We'd already have a facility, and it would already be paid off at this point based upon those plans. So it's good to see things are moving forward. I question whether we'll actually see something in the next 3 or 4 years, but here's hoping that we do, simply because it will tie in, as you said, to other productive
sports
sports
tourism.
tourism industry areas that we already have in the city of Frankfort. So and that we're growing. So this could be big for the city of Frankfort, and it could be big for all of those local sports teams. Right now, Craig, Frankfort, Franklin County, Western Hills, their swim teams have to travel to Shelbyville or to Woodford County
Yeah,
or even
yeah, Falling
Georgetown
Springs and Woodford County.
every single night that they have practice. And that makes for a long night. I talked to some parents where their kids were getting home at 10 p.m. in the middle of the week just for a practice. So
Right.
this changes. And by the way, we have a number of students from Franklin County and Western Hills that have gone on to swim in college. These are great opportunities for kids to have those opportunities. We had some amazing coaches for FAST and some other teams around here, and because of this, maybe those numbers will start to move up again and give more opportunities for kids to go into college in these particular sports as well.
And it'll save the parents of these swimmers a ton of money driving back and forth, and they got to eat before they go. So that's been a lot of the complaint is the mileage they have to drive every night, and then every meet is an away meet.
Everyone.
So that's more cost to them. So hopefully, with having local facilities, it'll save them a lot of time, and the kids will get home earlier to get their homework done.
I will say that this will be transformational for the county and city governments as well as the schools, because it will allow an environment that we don't have here in Frankfort and Franklin County. Georgetown has a pool, a community pool, indoor community pool. Shelbyville has the same. And by the way, that Shelbyville pool, their competition pool, it is full every single weekend. There are hundreds of people that go through that, and there are tons of sports tourism dollars that go through that
Right.
one building, and it is a travesty that we have allowed Shelbyville and Georgetown to take those opportunities away from us.
And something else, just popped in my head. Another big sport that when my kids were in high school is archery. They could hold archery meets on those double indoor basketball courts in the winter. That also brings in a ton of people because it switches out every hour. And then every hour, of course, you got to take your kids to get somewhere to get them something to eat. So that will help fill up the restaurants. I mean, this will be transformational, like you said, and hopefully bring a lot of money into the city and the county and help all the small businesses out after it's built. And hopefully they get it built pretty quick.
In a passing note on this, I will also say, going back to that first picture we had of the local officials all in one room, that is the first time I have seen that in several years. It's amazing what you can accomplish when all of the officials are in the same room. I know it was a running joke when I was on the city commission.
Yeah.
Are you going to make the motion that we have a joint
You
meeting?
did it every week, didn't you?
I did it every week because it's that important. And when you get the leaders in a room from your schools and from your city and county, you'll get stuff done. I don't know why that's always been controversial. I don't know why there's not something on the books to make it happen at least quarterly, but good on them. They did it. They got in a room for 20 minutes and made a decision. Let's hope that they stick with it and it keeps moving forward and going from there.
It'll be spectacular.
It will. It'll be great. Whatever they end up doing, it'll be great. And I hope that everyone will remain committed to this plan, especially as they will probably begin working on updating KSU's facilities and things of that nature as well. So it'll be nice to have all this in 10 years if everything kind of comes together for maybe my grandkids will be able to enjoy some of these things. So.
We'll reach out to the right people and see
what
we can get on timelines and all that kind of stuff and report back on it on another show.
Well, and I'm saying it right now, I'd love for Jennifer Cantner to be on the show. She's a wealth of knowledge on this. I'd love for Mark Kopp, Superintendent Kopp, come on the show and talk to us about this. And, of course, any city and county officials, you guys are always welcome. And we will have more news on some of the folks we're going to have on soon as well. From a major local investment here in Frankfort to a sweeping change at the state level that could impact everything from horse racing to sports betting across Kentucky, one of the biggest bills to come out of the last session is House Bill 904, a sweeping overhaul of Kentucky's gaming laws. At the center of that bill is a major shift, the legalization of what they call fixed odds wagering on horse racing. Now, Craig, traditionally, Kentucky has operated under a pari-mutuel system where payouts depend on the total betting pool, and your odds change after, if you've ever been to Keeneland, and for those folks who went to Keeneland today, I hope you had a wonderful time. Looks like you had an absolutely beautiful afternoon. But the odds are locked in now. With fixed odds betting, the odds are locked in at the time you place your bet. So if you go to the window and it's a 10-1 horse, and you put it in at 10-1, and a bunch of people bet on it then and makes it 4-1 right after that, you locked it in at 10-1. So that is what that is. Kentucky will be joining states like New Jersey and Colorado, who have already changed their laws to this. Bettors know exactly what they'll win up front now. According to reporting from Thoroughbred Daily News, the bill is designed to expand and modernize Kentucky's gambling infrastructure. The bill goes far beyond horse racing, though, and this is where it's going to affect a lot of you who are casual sports gamblers. It will, House Bill 904 raises the minimum age for sports betting from 18 to 21. It bans prop bets on Kentucky college athletes and college sports. It expands the regulation of fantasy sports and charitable gaming, and it creates a new oversight structure under the state's gaming authority. That's all from Spectrum News 1 Kentucky and the Kentucky legislature itself. The impact: the bill also includes provisions aimed directly at protecting the Kentucky's horse industry. It blocks outside organizations from placing limits on stallion breeding practices unless those rules are applied globally across the country. House Bill 904 also builds a broader framework. There is a new tax structure on wagering activity, increased licensing and compliance requirements, and expanded authority for regulators and enforcement agencies. Now, of course, not everyone is happy, as you can obviously understand. Some lawmakers argue that expanding gambling in this way may require a constitutional amendment, not just a statute, and that could set up a potential legal fight moving forward. The bill has passed both houses with strong support and moved to the governor's desk at this point. One other thing I will add before we talk about this, Craig, one exemption for that 18 to 21 rule is betting on horses. As you can imagine, you can still be 18 and be at Keeneland and bet on horses. And so the bottom line, Kentucky isn't just tweaking its gambling laws, it's fundamentally changing how betting works across the state. One other thing, I'll start the questions off here, Craig. I don't know if you saw Stan Cave's post today that I sent over to you. Yeah. He was heavily critical of this. In fact, he said that he didn't say this exactly, but I believe his intent was this is a Trojan horse bill. This is doing way more than what it lays out that it is, and it is allowing fixed betting, which will allow, here we are, casino gambling in the state of Kentucky. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. But on the prop bets, there's a reason they changed it. Somebody was losing money probably, and they lobbied to change the rules. Like prop bets, they could be anything from how many times a guy's going to dribble it down the court once he gets off, crosses half court. And I've read that people are winning a lot of money off prop bets than they are full game bets.
They are, and there's a lot of guys who I know, and I say guys, I know there are ladies out there that like to gamble, but a majority of the people out there that are gambling are men. And I will say that one of the interesting aspects about this, and I don't know how it will play out, but there are other entities like Kalshi and Polymarket who allow you to gamble on things that are not sports related. And I'm interested to see how this is going to be affected, because essentially, I'll give you an example. There was a prop bet on whether Caroline Leavitt's speech one day would go longer than 1 hour. And I don't know if you remember that or not, but at 59 minutes and 48 seconds, she was in the middle of answering a question, closed up her book, and walked off. And there was heavy betting on that. Now, there was there's nothing to prove that she had anything to do with it or even knew about it. But it's very interesting now. People are betting on just life activities.
Well,
Like,
in Calci, there's some federal talk about stopping Calci doing political bets because it's affecting too many things they say. The
well,
Fed.
Kalshi and Polymarket are the only odds that I look at anymore
Yeah,
because they're the only ones that are correct, because where people put their money, that's where I don't care about pre-election polling and all this other stuff.
right.
You go back to the Seltzer poll in Iowa where they said, that uh, Vice President Harris was up 3 points in Iowa, which would have been
Yeah,
earth-shattering. I think she lost by
Trump was going to
13.
lose Iowa by 11.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a 14-point swing or something. So it wasn't even close. But Polymarket and Kalshi had it right to the number. I mean, they knew, because people put their money where they think things are going to go, and that's the things you can believe. Now, I think there's a constitutional argument whether you and I want to place a side wager on something we see, happening in real life, and how somebody can control that. That might be a little bit of an overreach. But where this, I think where this changes things is you will have to enter where your location is, and based upon geo tracking on your phone or your iPad or your computer, it's going to say you can't make that bet, right? It's going to say you can't say who's going to win the coin toss at the Super Bowl. And I think that there are very few people out there right now who know this law even changed. And
Right.
I think it will definitely be challenged in the courts, and we're going
They'll
to
have
see
to
what happens.
take up VPN stuff, where you can say you're in Texas,
Right.
but you're really in Kentucky. And what will happen again is like what happened with the lottery and stuff. When the states around us had the lottery, all our border cities, those people just drove across the state line and bought their stuff.
Well, and it
Buy a lottery ticket. So will this come into play too? They drive across, get something to eat in Tennessee, place their bet, and it's tracked by their IP on their phone,
yeah.
and then drive back to Kentucky.
I think it's interesting because
They'll figure a way around it.
they will, but it's interesting because on one side you have the fixed betting in place where folks like Stan Cave say this is going to allow casino gambling, but then you have a totally other aspect of this where they're trying to shut down prop betting, which casinos make tons of, especially sports books, make tons of money off of these prop bets now. So it's almost like it's a dichotomy of how this law is going to be used, and I'm not quite sure that it's going to accomplish exactly what they want to do if the ultimate goal is to bring in casinos into Kentucky. I don't know that that's exactly what it is, but I don't know how that's going to work.
I bet there's not 20 people in Kentucky that knows what they're trying to do.
Oh,
because
it would be on every social media. I mean, our Facebook would be flooded with people we know who would be mad. And I'm telling you right now, folks, this law that was created to deal with whether stallions can have as many mares as they want to, hidden in that language, is preventing you from staying on your sports book betting, and it is going to be very controversial when that goes down.
And I'm wondering if some of the sports books from Las Vegas and New Jersey and stuff will just pull out of Kentucky.
Oh, they'll have to, because otherwise they don't want to get sued. I mean, it's a liability.
And they don't want a program for just Kentucky. Right? Just a betting program.
No.
I don't know how hard that would be, but
if you're on DraftKings or one of those, or FanDuel, you're gonna have to have a VPN or something of some nature, and hope you don't get caught in some way. So, well, moving on from this story right here, from changes in how Kentucky regulates gambling to a move by lawmakers that could actually reshape how the state's largest school district is governed. Senate Bill 1 and its companion legislation, Senate Bill 4, target Jefferson County Public Schools, the largest district in the state. Together, these bills represent a major shift in how that district is going to be governed moving forward. Senate Bill 1 shifts authority from the elected school board and toward the superintendent, rewriting portions of Kentucky law governing local school leadership. Lawmakers argue this is necessary Lost my spot. Lawmakers argue this is necessary for a reported $180+ million budget shortfall, and major transportation failures that disrupted schools for thousands of students. In fact, we talked about this a few days ago that you had students who were getting home at 10 p.m.
Yeah,
Something
that's crazy.
crazy. Yeah, and ongoing concerns about management and performance. Senate Bill 4, on the other hand, expands control and goes a step further. Originally a training bill. Amazing how these bills start out one way, Craig. You and I have seen this for years. It starts out as a bill about, donkeys and ends up becoming a bill about, pizza. It really is crazy
Yeah.
how these things happen. Originally a training bill, it was amended to allow state-appointed members on large school district boards and a potential shift away from fully elected governance. That's from Spectrum News 1 Kentucky. The legal cloud is obvious because there's a major problem with this. A similar law, almost identical in nature, targeting JCPS was struck down by the Kentucky Supreme Court just last year, which ruled lawmakers cannot single out one district without sufficient justification. Lawmakers are once again trying to do this, but this version is almost certainly headed for another legal challenge. This isn't just education policy; it's a direct test of how far the legislature can go in taking control of a local government body. Craig, your thoughts on Jefferson County Public Schools, and will the legislature continue to try to pass laws that essentially give them more control over the state's largest school population?
Well, is it trying to where the federal government's trying to eliminate the Department of Education, and they're preliminarily thinking it's going to happen, and trying to move all state control here? Then you've got Louisville and their school bus problems that they've had the last 2 years in a row. You've got their scores from their students. You keep spending more money on these students, but yet their grades don't go up. So there's all kinds of problems up there, and I'm sure it's across Kentucky too. But everybody always says they're overstaffed on the high end, on the top end, and there's not enough teachers in the rooms, or their student population is too much. And I don't know a whole lot about what goes on in Jefferson County and their schools, but I know there's a lot of problems.
I will tell you, I am very thankful that we are in Franklin County, where we have a school board
Absolutely.
that is so good. We don't know how good we have it. If you have a problem with the school board, at least you can talk to the school board members.
Right.
Everyone that's on there is willing to talk to you. The issue that I see is that there's a funding problem at our two largest school systems in Fayette County and
Is it a
Jefferson
funding
County.
problem or a spending problem?
There you go. I mean, I guess tomato potato, right? You try to figure out which one is actually the problem. But at the same time, if you spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's the actual amount of money that's being spent in the last few years in these areas, but your test scores and your graduation rates are not reflective of what's happening there. You have little children that are getting off buses in Jefferson County at 10 p.m. at night. I'll never understand that. There's all sorts of ways. I mean, gee whiz, AI could probably figure out what your bus route should be and how many buses.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it will. If not now, pretty darn soon.
And in the end, I think the other aspect is Jefferson County Public Schools has had major problems, institutional problems, for at least a decade. And there's been talk for years that the legislature and the state, the Board of Education, would step in and essentially take over all control. And they already have some controls in place, but would take over all control of Jefferson County Public Schools. How does it affect you? Well, it's your state tax dollars that are going, and those are the largest recipients of state tax dollars, is Jefferson County and Fayette County. So while we may be in central, in Franklin County, some of you folks who are watching, in fact, many of you folks who are watching are outside of Franklin County. Whether you're in Menifee County or whether you're in Paducah or wherever, your state tax dollars are affected by how these school systems operate, and whether they do a good job of getting students graduated, and whether they do a good job of getting these students to the point where they can read and write. And that's a broader question that I think I'll throw out to you, Craig. You've seen the test scores of some of these students in some of these areas in the state of Kentucky.
Every homepage of every school system.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. If you go to any school system in the state of Kentucky, it is mandated that they actually have their test scores and the percentage of students who are not just distinguished in areas, but proficient, meaning that they can do the basics. And you would be shocked at the numbers of students who are eighth grade, 10th grade, and graduating seniors who cannot perform basic reading and math. Craig, I see it every day in my office. I have tons of employees just like you do. We see people who come through who appear to be normal, average humans, and they cannot read and you do math at a very basic level. What's going on, and how is that happening?
Well, if you remember last year in Baltimore, of the 17 high schools, 0 students met the basic requirements to graduate. And they're all 17 high schools. Not a single student was proficient in anything. Jefferson County spends $22,060 per student, and there's 90,000 students. So do the math. It's a huge amount of money, but
and I think
don't drill down. This goes back to the property tax thing that I'm always harping on. When you got parents that don't pay school taxes, and when I went to school, when my kids went to school, we would go to the parent-teacher meetings. Us and maybe one other couple would be there in the room, which was, out of 25 kids. And so you were lucky you got to spend all your time with that particular teacher as long as you wanted to. But everything boils down to money. And if you're a parent and you're paying property taxes, or you're paying a school tax so your kid can go to school, regardless if you own property or not, maybe you'll get more skin in the game, and you'll try to help these teachers educate your kid. You'll help them with the homework and all those other things that you and I did with our children.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I feel terrible for some teachers with there are some great social media posts that I see where teachers will post emails that they get from parents.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it. Susie was late to school because she doesn't like rain. I'm like, what are you talking about? And these are the parents that are emailing the teacher, like, can we just give her a pass for that? Susie's a great little girl.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And my kids, each one of them missed 3 days from kindergarten through college.
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah.
Because we made them go to school. We taught them early that it was important to go to school.
Well, and what do you learn? That it's important to go to school? Then you learn it's important to go to work, right? I mean, that's the most important thing, and I think that's simply not being taught. I will say this: the numbers don't lie. For 24-25, the state average in the Commonwealth of Kentucky is that 49% of students had a proficient ability to read, and 43% had a proficiency in math. In Jefferson County alone, only 34% of high school students were proficient in reading, and 31% were proficient in math.
Do the parents help their students at all? Not their students, their kids with homework, or they check on their school or look at their report card?
I will say, it was already hard enough in the state of Kentucky until COVID happened. Then you have a generation of students right now who are in high school and college in the state of Kentucky who lost a year and a half of school. They lost a year and a half of school.
Fauci.
And it's a situation that I don't know that we'll fix it until we have another generation, a full generation of students who didn't have that year and a half of lost school. I don't care about, school at home. That's not the teacher's fault. It's not. There's all sorts of other issues. But 49% of the students are proficient in proficient. This isn't that you can write Shakespearean prose. This is that you can read a newspaper at a 9th grade level. That's shocking.
When your kids went to college, I'm sure you saw, even their second year of college, classes are being offered that are remedial high school stuff.
Remedial reading. We're not talking remedial like algebra.
In their sophomore year of college. And, because we looked at our kids' schedule, on their classes that they could take.
Yep.
And I said, what the crap how is this going on that college is having to teach kids to do remedial math and remedial reading at
I,
that
I
age, at 19 years old?
I don't know what the fix is at this point, and it's scary, Craig. It's absolutely scary that there again. I mention this all the time. If you haven't watched the ludicrous movie called Idiocracy, we are in the middle of that movie right now. It was so over the top. People thought there's absolutely no way you could have, you know, people drooling when they look at very simple signs that are spelled out for you, and that's exactly where we are. And it's sad. Uh,
We promoted apparently.
we did.
We
I
just,
don't know what.
well, I don't know that we passed kids on, but I know one thing that I personally think was the worst thing they ever did was when I went to high school. If you were 16 and you didn't want to go to school no more, you could leave school, go get a job, go to the military, go sit at home, whoever. But when they changed that law, the kids that did not want to go to school at age 17 and 18, it could be one kid that could disrupt every class all day long, just fuss at the teacher,
Yeah.
whatever. And they didn't want to be in school in the first place. So I guess they came up with the academy
Yep.
to help those students. But I've never liked that law. If the child wants to quit at 16, then just let them quit and get them out of the school system.
Well, and
Well, not to interrupt, but
no,
you don't keep bad employees around to ruin everybody else. You want
no,
harmony.
no, but I don't know that sequestering a whole section of students in each of these counties does anything for those students either. Because
No,
at that
well,
point,
just let them quit.
yeah, I mean, at that point, you're not doing them any favors either. Now, if they don't get a job or whatever restrictions you want to put on them to make sure that they're productive members of society, allow them to do that. But my goodness, it's what a frustrating proposition at this point. We will move on from that. From control over schools to a proposal that could permanently change the balance of power at the highest level of state government. Lawmakers are now sending a major constitutional question directly to you, the Kentucky voters, Craig. It seems like every single election we have another potential Kentucky state amendment. Very few actually pass. And that proposed change is whether to limit the governor's power to issue pardons. Senate Bill 10 proposes that an amendment to the Kentucky Constitution that would restrict when a governor can grant clemency through pardon. Under the proposal, a governor would be prohibited from issuing pardons or commuting sentences within 60 days before a gubernatorial election and through the end of that governor's term until a successor is sworn in. That's from directly from the bill. Lawmakers say it's needed. Supporters of the amendment say it's about preventing what we call lame duck pardons and politically motivated clemency decisions made at the end of a term. They argue this creates a safeguard against an abuse of executive power during transitions of leadership. What makes this different is this is not a typical bill because it amends the Constitution. It does not go to the Kentucky governor for approval. Instead, it goes directly to Kentucky voters statewide, who will decide whether to adopt this change or not. The measure passed the Kentucky Senate with overwhelming support, 36-0 and 1 abstention. And if approved by voters, this would be permanent. This would permanently limit one of the governor's most powerful constitutional tools, and it is now on the desk of the Secretary of State and will be put on the next general election. Your thoughts on limiting lame duck clemencies and pardons?
Well, I've always wondered why, if somebody deserved a pardon at the fourth year of the third year and 9 months in, why didn't they deserve it at 18 months in? I don't know. I don't know if there's a commission in Kentucky like there is federally to uh, review all these various pardon requests, but wait until the very end. They can pardon anybody
Absolutely.
and not hurt themselves politically. But I think if somebody's innocent, you don't want to make them wait 3 years and 6 months to
Well,
get their clemency reviewed and signed off on, because the governor's going to, they're going to sign off, they're going to meet with them and everything. But I just think it's so fake to do it at
agreed.
3 years and 11 months into your term.
Well, and honestly, I think that this is something that we need to look at on a national scale. I think it's kind of ridiculous what a president can do, pardoning everyone, and besides just the turkey at Thanksgiving. I
Mhm.
think this is a situation where think back to the end of the Biden administration, think back to the end of Trump 1, think back to the end of Obama, and there are all sorts of folks who get pardoned in those last days, because especially if, let's say, for example, when Joe Biden announces he's not running again, or after President Trump was defeated during his first term, you have 60 days that, what do you care? You're not going to be back in here, right? There is a president-elect. Here there is a governor-elect, if you will. And at that point, what do they have to lose? So I think that is a danger upon the civility of humanity and our communities if you allow one person who doesn't care, who doesn't have anything to lose, to just allow anyone to walk out either the door of a prison or to essentially get certain rights back.
And who knows why, was there some kind of thing that will benefit the person doing the pardon at the last minute? We don't know that. We don't, we see these pardons, the last several presidents, that you just cannot fathom at all why they did it. Now, it's something different this term. Trump's been pardoning people from day one, all the way through. Like, he's not waiting until the end. And I think Biden did the same thing. So maybe it's changing on a national level where the presidents are receiving these things and making a decision then versus waiting until the end of their term.
Well, and next to term limits, and term limits is obviously the most needed thing. It's also one of these things where everyone across across both sides of the aisle agree you need term limits until you get into Congress, and then all of a sudden you don't need term limits anymore, right?
We have term limits already. It's called elections.
They are
4 and 6 years. We have them. The electorate keeps voting the same people in over and over again, and then complains about doing it.
Well, and not only that, but once you get into those areas, then you open the box with all of the money to you. So if you win a seat, if you win a congressional House seat, you get all of that Republican congressional money, or that PAC money, or you get the Democrat, national money, whatever it is. So you can keep that seat, because the only thing worse than you not having the seat is someone from the other party having that seat. Right. So that's the real reason we don't have term limits, and the real reason we don't have things moving forward on a more regular basis. I think the other thing with regard to these pardons is what it does is it takes the scenario out of the box where if something happens at the end of the term that got a governor, or if we go to a national stage, didn't get someone reelected based upon things that happened during the election cycle, and they're pounding on me because of my director of finance or whatever, right? It's like all of a sudden there's this get out of jail free card that's given to everybody that's pointed out during the election, so there's not prosecutions.
And we saw that the last campaign when Biden pardoned his whole family, even though he kept saying he wasn't going to up until the last minute when he did it. So we'll never know what really went on. And the 60-day window, I support that, because I think it'll add pressure to the governor and his team to process these things, and it'll stop handing out the favors, because the electorate will have 60 days prior to the election to see that somebody with political power got pardoned. Absolutely. And they might hold it against the people in office at the time and elect the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the point of it, I'm sure.
It absolutely is. From state-level decisions shaping power here in Kentucky to the national economy, where a closely watched jobs report released today is sending a mixed signal. We're getting ready to show that here in a second about where things stand with the economy. But, Craig, these business folks who are on television and these reporters, they wait until the day they come out. They are waiting for these numbers to come out, and it seems like they're always shocked about it. And today, after a very low February turnout, they were shocked, and here is their reaction this morning.
This is one heck of a report, folks. Wow is right, Steve Moore. Non-farm jobs coming in 178. 178,000 jobs. The expectation was 60,000, folks. The unemployment rate went down to 4.3%. The expectation was 4.4%. We didn't get a loss in manufacturing jobs. We got a hit of 15,000 manufacturing jobs. Private sector jobs, get this, folks, 186,000. 186,000. The estimate was for 70,000, and the average work week 34.2 hours. That was actually a little bit less than expected. And again, looking at the U6 underemployment rate, that was coming in at 8%. I'm going to go into the report, folks, as I do every month, and I'm going to give you a sense of where the jobs are. But as I'm doing that, I want to go over to Steve Moore. You had the same reaction I did. What a number! Wow.
Wow, what a great Easter weekend present this is. I mean, my God, this is way, way higher than even the range of forecasts. I can't quite figure it out. I have to look deeper into these numbers, but it is really good news for the economy. I think one of the things this tells us is that employers believe that the situation in the Middle East is temporary, and they're planning for the future, and they're hiring workers according to this report. And so it appears that employers and businesses believe that Trump is right, that we'll get the Straits of Hormuz open, that this is a temporary shock to the economy, and that we've got sort of smooth sailing ahead. And by the way, the fact that, again, we're seeing more private sector employment and a fall in the government employment is a very positive thing. It's been a trend we've seen so far. I didn't see what happened with the I'd love to see what happened with the wage rate, but overall, wow, this is an amazing report.
The government jobs was a loss of 8,000. I want to bring that up to everybody.
So, Craig, your thoughts on at least their initial reaction with regard to what happened?
Yeah, they were shocked because all the prognosticators, the companies that estimate what it's going to be, were off by a third. This was 3 times what was expected at 60,000. We got close to 180,000. But I want people to remember back when we had the low or negative jobs created. If you remember before Trump, they were creating a lot of jobs in the government sector, a ton of jobs in the government sector. Trump went in and they started cutting tens of thousands of federal government jobs. And obviously you see it ain't hurt nothing. And we're still progressing along. But that drove down the overall job numbers and it increased the unemployment rate. So this is big. It'll get adjusted in about a week, up or down, whichever way it goes, like they always do. That doesn't get as much fanfare as, like you said, at 9 o'clock in the morning or 9:05 in the morning when they release the numbers and all these business shows are waiting with.
This could have been a big hit to the Dow and stock markets across the world if the prognosticators were right. Now, let me say something before I want to dive into those numbers a little bit more and explain what they mean. But having good job numbers is not a win or a loss for Republicans or Democrats. It is a win for the U.S. economy. Plain and simple. And one of the main reasons we have this show is to show all the good wins the country is having. And just because it's under President Trump's administration, if it was under President Kamala Harris's administration and we had 180,000 new jobs, this is a good thing for the economy. You can't not celebrate things just because it happened under one person's tenure. That's how we've gotten ourselves in the situation that we're in. If you have good job numbers, it's really great for the economy. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. added 178,000 non-farm jobs in March, while the unemployment rate came in at 4.3%. That easily beat economist expectations. Reuters reported economists had been looking for about 60,000 new jobs, tripled that, meaning the headline number came in 3 times higher than the forecast. The same report shows February revised down sharply, what you were just talking, and January was revised up. But together, those revisions mean job growth in the first quarter has been more uneven than the headlines noted. The average job growth for the first quarter was about 68,000 per month, which paints a more moderate picture of the labor market, but still positive. We have a number of the unemployment rate that is still considered
And
good.
It's important to note that these are non-farm jobs, meaning they're not seasonal jobs. These are
That's correct.
permanent 12-month-a-year jobs
Yeah.
that will help the economy over all 12 months versus just the summer growing season that you see the big ups in the
Yep.
spring and the big downs in the fall. That's why they separate farm and non-farm jobs out, so it doesn't look so bad.
The biggest driver was healthcare, adding 76,000 jobs, including a large rebound tied to workers returning from a strike. Other gains included construction with 26,000 new jobs in construction. If there are construction jobs, it means things are being built, which means progress is happening. And transportation and warehousing added 21,000. Meanwhile, federal government employment declined, which is great. Here's where things get more complicated. The unemployment rate dropped, but partly because fewer people were participating in the workforce, the labor force.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yep.
Do you know how the unemployment rate is calculated? It is, if me and you're looking for jobs for 4 months and then we just decide to say the hell with it and we stop looking, we're no longer counted. It's only active people looking for jobs. So it's never a good number. The better numbers, the job force employment, I forget the exact term, that shows, 160 million Americans working, 158 million. That's the actual workforce number.
Workforce population numbers is what you're looking for.
That's just, I think, is 4.3% number of the unemployment thing. There's so much data that's not in it because it doesn't include all of America. It only includes job seekers. So if the economy picks up, you say you get a whole bunch more jobs, but sometimes the unemployment rate rises. It's because people's expectations are that they might be able to find a job now, and they're now back in the count again, even though they're unemployed looking. So it's a positive that can be spun as a negative.
It can. Either way, wage growth for wages and hours, this is also a good aspect of this report. Wage growth slowed. It did increase. It slowed, though, to 0.2% increase, 3.5% year over year, the slowest pace in years, unless you're a former state employee or retiree who would love to have 3.5%. The average work week also dipped slightly, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The bond market reacted immediately. The Treasury yields moved higher, which is great. The dollar strengthened. Analysts say this report likely reduces pressure on the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates anytime soon. That's not a great thing. We want that rate cut as much as possible. Right now we do. One strategist told me. What's that?
That'll happen in May.
It will. And what happens in May?
Yeah, we get a new Treasury.
Be a new Fed chair.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next week. I don't know if you saw Janine Pirro's her press conference a couple days ago where they were talking about an investigation into the Fed chair, but be that as it may, we can.
That's open the building.
Yeah. This headline number blew away any expectations. If you're hoping for rate cuts, though, this report doesn't necessarily help. You're going to have to wait a couple more months for that, probably. Big picture.
People that are saving money because it keeps the CD rates and other rates up when they cut rates. Up. Yeah, when it cuts rate, the people that are saving money, it's a detriment to them.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is the job report was stronger than expected, way stronger than expected. But underneath the headline, the data tells us a more complicated story, and we will have to see where those numbers get adjusted in the coming weeks. And from the national economy to the business of college sports, this is big for the University of Kentucky. Kentucky may have just created a new model for how athletes get paid. Kentucky Athletics is making one of the boldest moves in the NIL era, announcing a groundbreaking partnership and continuing partnership with Fanatics that could fundamentally change how college athletes get paid. And this isn't just another NIL deal. This is a long-term structural shift in how compensation works for college sports. The University of Kentucky Athletics has signed a 12-year extension with Fanatics running through 2038, expanding an already long-standing relationship into the NIL space. Fanatics already operated the UK team shop, serves as the school's primary licensing partner, and distributes Kentucky's gear through major retailers. Now they're adding something new, a first-of-its-kind NIL program layered directly onto that retail system. Here's how that model is going to work, Craig. This is where Kentucky is doing something different. Instead of relying solely on donor-funded collectives, this deal creates a retail-driven NIL model. Under the agreement, athletes can actually launch their own personalized online storefronts. They promote official Kentucky gear, and they earn money based on sales and marketing activity. Fanatics will also feature athletes in national campaigns, push their products through both online and in-store retail channels, and one outlet described the model as NIL in its truest form, driving retail sales. The most important part of this deal, Craig, is there is no fixed salary or guaranteed payment pool. Instead, athletes earn through commission-based sales, marketing payments, incentives tied to performance and engagement, and critically, compensation is tied to real business activities, not donor funding. Craig, one of the things that I think makes this extremely interesting is that we are about 4 days away, 4 days and a couple of hours away from the portal opening.
Yep.
And everybody is jockeying for how is our deal and how is our university going to be different than what you could get at, say, Kansas or North Carolina or St. John's or Arkansas. And Kentucky is stepping up, being creative to help these students. Your thoughts?
Well, who's the number one fan base by a mile?
University of Kentucky.
UK. I mean, I saw a study the other day. It was like UK on a 0 to 100. UK was 84, and the next closest one was like 59. So it's logical that Fanatics went with UK because we've got the craziest fans that spend money on that university. I mean, my office in here is surrounded by UK stuff. I've got UK stuff upstairs.
See my walls all
Yeah,
over
your walls, all my splash screens on my computers, desktop, laptops are all UK stuff. I get in trouble for not having my grandkids on at least one of them. But, we'll spend the money. The athletes will have to promote them. So now it will create more fan engagement from what way I would think about it. It would create no more of the cocky student athlete just walking off and not even giving the fan high five or nothing. This will be like Luka Doncic in the NBA and SGA staying out there till the last fan leaves, signing autographs and all that stuff. So now maybe the college athletes will do that so that they can sell their apparel, hats, shoes, whatever it is they're trying to sell.
Well, and it's not mandatory. You don't have to participate in it. What I think you're going to end up seeing is why wouldn't you? It's free money at that point. But what I think you're going to end up doing, these students don't have time. My daughter goes to a small school. She's a D1 athlete, and she has her own apparel and things that she can put out, and she has to design it. She has to put it all out there. These students don't have that kind of time, right? So I think what you're going to see is you're going to see some of these marketing companies come in and say, hey, we got you, right? We'll do this for you, and we'll take a small percentage of that small percentage that you're getting, and we'll design all this stuff for you. So I think that is a recruiting edge. Kentucky now can pitch a direct path to monetization, whereas
might be a local job creator.
100%. I would. Yeah, I hope that the University of Kentucky Business School looks at this and says, what can we do as a university to work with these student athletes and with the athletic department to figure out how to give the experience to some of these kids? Listen, I could design clothes all day long. Ain't nobody want to wear what Kyle Thompson's designing. I can tell you that, right? But my kids can design something, and other college kids will want to wear what those college kids are wearing. And it won't be what you and I think is cool, Craig.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I say, the student athlete, whether they're a soccer player, a baseball player, or basketball or football player, they might not have time to do the designs, but they'll have time to do marketing, like when they're going between class, doing a TV commercial or something like that they have time for now. I just hope the middlemen don't get in the way and take the biggest part of the profit from the student athlete.
Well, I can tell you there's guys salivating right now.
Sure,
there are people in the wings salivating. I hope that the University of Kentucky does something to protect some of these kids, because there are some kids that are going to come in who are, and I'm going to tell you, the big name, if Reed Shepherd had this opportunity while he was here, he'd still be making money off this.
Right.
Now, he obviously there are marketing deals and he's making money off those things, but what I'm saying is when you're a student athlete, if you can put your direct designs and name on things and you don't have to go through the Nike brands or any of those things, you can put out whatever you want and make money off that. That it's just going to be way easier.
Think about the Unforgettables.
Oh, they're still making money off them.
1992. They would still be making bank in 2026.
Right.
You
right.
know?
But they're not. But Nike and other programs are. Like I'm sure that the Unforgettables got zero of the denim kickback that they wore this year.
Of course, the number one all time is Michael Jordan in Nike.
Well,
he said, "I don't want the money. I want stock.
I want stock in Nike, and the man will never have to work again if he doesn't want to."
The number one guy.
Yeah. Well,
recently, Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, and now she's going to be the highest paid person in women's sports, and deservedly so. She should be, because she's bringing butts in the seats, and that's exactly what is needed. So it will be interesting to see what happens
I
here.
like this deal.
Yeah, I think it's a great deal. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can use it as a pitch for some of these guys. Some of these guys have people in their crew that are willing to make these, do all this stuff for them. And they're way more creative than the athletes themselves. Maybe they put out a bunch of stuff and be able to go from there. I think it's kind of cool. It's thinking outside the box, and I commend the University of Kentucky and their folks for doing that. We will go ahead and move on to local sports. Last night in local baseball scores, Frankfort fell at East Jessamine, and Western Hills fell at Mercer County. Not a good night for the home teams. Hopefully they can get off the schneid. We've had some rough nights lately. So tonight Franklin County is playing at Central Hardin. First pitch is at 6:30 p.m. And that's Eastern time because Central Hardin is down in that time zone change. So if you're heading down there,
where it's at.
Hustle down. So moving on to your local weather, over the next couple days, we are going to be reminded that we are still in Kentucky. We will have a very good day, just like today. Today's afternoon, we're going to have that tomorrow as well. But then as we get to the overnight, it is going to start raining, and then that coat is going to be absolutely needed. On Sunday morning, everything's going to change by Sunday. That cold front moves through with the temperature dropping fast. Highs are only going to be in the upper 50s, cooler and less humid, and much calmer overall. But it is going to feel about 20 degrees different from when you go to bed and the time that you wake up for Easter Sunday services.
We might have to reach out to Phil Case and get him to come on and talk about the planting schedules.
Absolutely. In fact, my wife, who it loves her planting and things, and she's getting better and better at it, was so stressed out about the frost that came earlier the freezing temperatures that we got earlier this week. She was so stressed out about it. And I know there's lots of people who are going.
I got my peach trees again. This is the third year in a row.
Yeah, I mean it's you're still in Kentucky, whether we want to forget that or not. We will always have those crazy temperatures this time in spring. I really wish that we could do something with a little bit better accuracy, but Kentucky is what it is. As people say, you can have all four different seasons in one day here in Kentucky, which makes it just absolutely crazy. Well, one of the things that we recognize as today is Good Friday. This is Easter weekend. We hope that you guys have an absolutely amazing Easter Sunday with your family and friends. We all have lots of blessings to be thankful for, but none more important than what we celebrate on Easter and celebrating our risen Lord and Savior. So we want to thank you all for joining us. This is the end of week 2 for us, but we're going to keep going every single day at 5 p.m., every single weekday at 5 p.m. We are here. I am Kyle Thompson. I am joined every single day here with my friend Craig Blanton, and we will catch you all next time. Thanks for joining us on Apex News Above the Noise podcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. See you next week. Bye.